Well, the African Capacity Building Foundation celebrated recently its 20th anniversary on February 9th, 2011. And to mark the anniversary, we issued a special publication on the status of capacity in Africa. Well, the last issue focused on the capacity development in fragile states. We're now collecting the second issue for 2012, which will focus on capacity for agricultural productivity and food security. But each year we'll have a core set of indicators so that you can track trends and do analysis. For example, we've already used the indicators to see what's the impact of project implementation units on development results. Does tide aid help or hurt? Which are the key questions coming up for Busan, and how should you structure development aid? Does budget support make sense or not? How should you structure it if you do give budget support? Governance issues and so on. So the indicators are very rich, and they're allowing us to look at different dimensions of capacity. But perhaps the singular headline we can come up with is that despite a lot of progress on policy issues, the big constraint for Africa is implementation. And if we get a handle on implementation, we'll unlock the development results. So the report is very hopeful in that sense, because we now know where to put attention. Well, we've been invited to participate in Busan. We have done two things in preparation of that, and a third one is coming up shortly. First, as part of our 20th anniversary, we came up with a Kigali resolution with the leadership from President Kagame to come up with Africa's priorities for capacity development. As we speak, 45 countries have analyzed their capacities and put together a list of their top 5 priorities that we will bring to Busan. The second thing we did, working with the OECD and other players, is the Cairo Consensus, where I was co-chair with the Dr. Malek. And the results of the Cairo Consensus are now being stress tests, working with the UNDP, the World Bank and others, to see how do countries rank as a result of this Cairo Consensus, and we'll be bringing those results to Busan. But the third area is a meeting we'll be having with the African Union and NEPAD to collaborate to pull out the African messages in addition to the priorities for Busan. I think that's a very important area, and unfortunately capacity gets built in the long run. So the demand for results, which is a very well-placed demand from taxpayers and other constituencies that provide the funding for development, is important. However, there should be attention to making sure that the attention on results doesn't lead to short-termism, to deliver, for instance, numbers instead of real change. And a number of ways to balance that is first to ask the recipients of aid to actually develop their own change process and the track record for transformation. The second one is to leave room for innovation, to leave room for serendipity. The biggest results we've seen have come up not because they were planned, but because a space was created. So putting enough resources for space to be created. But the third area is to look at indicators as indicators, not as the final result. And I think this is where, for capacity development, it's absolutely capital that one should not confuse the indicator with the actual change. And as long as we can get these three things in place, the results agenda could be matched to the capacity building agenda. Well, first, I think the European Union is one of the largest contributors to Africa's development in terms of financing, and has been one of the most generous in terms of allowing ideas to come up from the ground. The difficulty that presents is that things then go very slowly in areas where implementation capacity is weak. So two messages I would have for the European Union is continue to allow these ideas to come up from the ground, but put attention to supporting the building of implementation capacity. And the second thing, in the thinking around reforming the instruments, whether it's budget support, technical assistance and so on, to keep attention on the fact that utilization of capacity is one of the best ways in which previous investments can be leveraged for the future, and that new instruments should not take away what was really a very good idea that has been practiced in the past, which is the ownership and the accountability for the results. So this question of mutuality, which Europe practices for itself, I think would be very good to continue to do in its relationship with Africa.